Welcome back, welcome back. Cuba Gooding Jr. first caught our attention in the critically acclaimed film Boys in the Hood in 1991. But it was his Oscar-winning performance in Jerry Maguire that propelled him to stardom and immortalised that catchphrase, "Show me the money." Other great films of his include Men of Honor and Pearl Harbor, and we'll be seeing him next on the big screen in Red Tails, a film about the first American-African pilots to fly in a combat squadron during World War II, the first. And he's here right now. Cuba, welcome.
Welcome, David.
I gather the first...
Pleasure. I'm honored to meet you.
And vice versa. It's great, really great to have you. And one question that turns out different when you look at the facts was where people would say, why did your parents call you Cuba? But in fact, the question is, why did your grandparents call your father Cuba?
Well, that's a very good question, because my grandfather's name was Dudley Gooding, and he was a sea merchant outside of Cuba, and his first wife was Cuban, and she passed away, and he moved to Manhattan and became a taxi cab driver, and they all have nicknames for the cab drivers, so they called him Cuba.
Right.
That was his nickname. Dudley Gooding was Cuba, and so when he had his son with my grandmother, he loved Cuba, and because of his first wife, he named him Cuba Gooding, officially.
Right.
And then my father named me Cuba Gooding Jr., but I'm unofficially Cuba III, based on the nickname. So,
oh, right, I see, yes. Yeah. But Cuba, I guess it's better than Liechtenstein or some other place.
Yeah. Or Russia Gooding, I guess would be a little longer to say.
And that film was really the film that actually got you launched, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Boys in the Hood.
I didn't really understand the impact this movie would make. To me, it was just a kid who was a smart dresser in the ghetto, and he was like the goody two-shoes of the group, and I was like, all right, I can do that. Yeah. And then, everything happened from there.
And Jerry Maguire, how did that come about?
Well, Jerry Maguire was, again, another interesting scenario. I mean, it seems like in my career, the roles that are pivotal to me always, they take something for me to make happen. And I'll never forget when Robin Williams walked into the room. Him and I had met each other at a fight, Mike Tyson fight earlier in Vegas, and we kind of hit it off. And so he walked in, he starts talking about the fight, and I'm yelling and screaming and stuff, and everybody's like, okay, let's start the read-through, because they love that energy. And then at the end of it, Cameron said, well, obviously it isn't going to be Robin Williams, because he just did it as a favor. We're trying to make a deal with Tom Cruise, and you're now the actor to beat for this other role of Rod Tidwell. And then I waited about a week or two and saw in the trades they signed Tom Cruise to the part. And then I went in again and did another read-through, just like I did with Robin Williams, with him. And this time, just as big as I was, and the rest was history.
Well, let's take a look at a scene from the very movie. Coming up on this screen right here.
Great.
Yeah, what can I do for you, Rod? You just tell me, what can I do for you?
It's a very personal, very important thing. Hell, it's a family motto. Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Here it is. Show me the money.
Looking
Money! Jerry, does that make you feel good just to say that? Say it with me one time, Jerry.
Show you the money.
Oh, no, you can do better than that, Jerry. I want you to say it with meaning, brother. Hey, I got Bob Sugar on the other line. I better hear you say it.
Yeah, no, show you the money.
Not show you. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Yeah. Louder.
Show me the money.
That's it, brother, but you got to yell at me.
Show me the money.
I need to feel you, Jerry.
Show me the money.
Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money.
Show me the money. And that took off, like a catchphrase does if the public really love it. Yeah?
Right.
And it's still quoted and used today, isn't it?
Every day.
But do people in the streets still say, show me the money?
Oh, they yell louder in the bars, but yes, they do. They do yell.
Yeah. The third one, that's a crucial one that springs to mind, is Red Tails, the one we were mentioning, Tuskegee.
Right.
pilots and so on, and coming out, George Lucas.
That's right, George Lucas. It's a passion project for him. I'll tell you a really quick story if I can.
Yeah.
When he was a young filmmaker, he had this movie about intergalactic warriors that 20th Century Fox had given them the money to make. And it was a story about that he entitled Star Wars. And he's working on this project. And during the production of the movie, after you finish filming, you do what they call the post-production on it, where you put in the sound effects and everything and you polish the movie. Well, the studio hadn't seen any footage. And what happened is they said, we want to see what you're shooting. And that horrified George, because he's like, you don't understand it. You won't understand until I get the special effects in there. It's not going to make sense to you. And they said, we don't care. We want to see what you've done. We've given you a considerable amount of money. We want to see the movie. So he's like, what should I do? So he took footage of the black fighter pilots from World War II who flew bomber escorts for the B-52 bombers when they raided Berlin. And he put that, spliced that into the movie of Star Wars, and he showed that to the studio executives. So he screened it that way, and they were blown away. We were like, if it looks anything like this actual footage, we get it. Here's the rest of your money. Make your movie. And he said from that day on, he's going to tell the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, the red tail fighter pilots, and that's what the movie basically is.
And it's very exciting theme for the reasons you just said, and the fact that this squadron or whatever was the first black group of pilots to go into action in war, wasn't it?
Right. They were over
absolutely number one.
That's exactly right. They were in Ramitelli Air Base in Italy, sitting for years, just doing strafing runs of trains and certain munitions, German munitions. But they weren't.
The powers that be didn't want to risk them, or didn't want the controversy. Or
well, they just didn't think they had the capabilities to fly in war. They said, you can fly the planes, we see that, but in combat, you know, the stress might make you buckle and you wouldn't be competent warriors. And what happened was Eleanor Roosevelt pushed, you know, her husband, Franklin Roosevelt, and they finally allowed them to compete or to engage in a combat because they had a scenario where a lot of the other pilots who were following the B-52 bombers were engaging in warfare with the Germans and not, you know, protecting the bomber pilots. And what would happen is they'd be sitting ducks and then they'd be shot out of the air. And an interesting fact is when the Red Tails, the black fighter pilots, had the detail of escorting the bombers, they never lost one plane. If you look at the stories that are told in Hollywood, the black historical films are very few and far between. And I knew with George Lucas's involvement that this was going to be a spectacle that would blow people away visually. And I've seen some of the movie, and it really is. I mean, it's on the scale of Avatar. I mean, the special effects. He's been working on this movie better than 2 years in post-production. So he's been working on the special effects for so long. And there is a frustration there because as an actor, you want to just be seen that as someone who can play any role. But, you know, being a man of color, you have to wait until they tell those stories that involve, especially these historical stories before they're told by a great filmmaker like George Lucas.
A great filmmaker. So you've really escaped prejudice in your own life.
Well, I've been, you know, taught to deal with it and not let it keep you down from being creative. And I've been blessed to be in movies that have made social statements like Boys in the Hood, Men of Honor, you know, and hopefully now Red Tails.
Fantastic. And we'll look forward to seeing that. When does it come out, in fact?
I don't know here, but it's the end of the year, maybe Christmas, maybe the beginning of next year. But again, George is going to take his time and do it right.
Yeah.
So.
And he usually does get it right.
Yeah, I think so.
Star Wars was a very promising preparation
Yes.
for doing this one with you.
Yeah, I think so.
Just a little preparation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being with us. It's a joy to have you. We look forward to the next time you're here too.
Absolutely, David.
God be with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just 5 years ago, Muhammad Yunus and the bank he founded, the Grameen Bank, won the Nobel Peace Prize for their pioneering work in microfinance in Bangladesh. This is the system of lending small amounts of money to the poor so they can help themselves out of poverty, even though they're small sums. Now, microfinance has become, well, it's a $65 billion industry globally around the world, if you count it all in. But its reputation has been tainted in recent months with accusations in other countries that some new companies are actually exploiting those that they're meant to help. Muhammad Yunus, the founder of all of this, really, has had his own problems. Earlier this month, he was forced to resign from the bank he founded. He was told he was too old. He should have stopped at 60, they said. That's what they said, wasn't it?
That's what they said, yeah.
And so was that the main reason you think that you were axed?
Well, that was the kind of immediate reason that they found that how to get me out of the bank. But probably they have other reasons. They wanted to see me out.
They also said that the fact that you had tried to form for a while a political party was a miscalculation because it alienated the powers that be.
These are the analyses and explanations people are coming up with why somebody is trying to get me out of the bank that I created, I founded. So nobody actually said that this is why we do that, saying that maybe somebody is angry at me because I wanted to create a party. And I actually didn't float a party. I said I will float a party and I'll join politics. And within about 2.5 months, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not my way of doing things. So I withdrew. I never created one. So, but that may be something which annoyed people.
But, yes. How much has the bank grown to at this point? And can it continue to grow and prosper without its founder?
Grameen Bank has come a long way. You remember we started way back in 34 years back in a small village with a little money, something like $27. That's how it started out with. It grew over time. Today we lend out over $125 million per month to 8.3 million borrowers.
And on average, $50 to $100 each?
Average today would be slightly more than that. It's about $200 average.
Right. Yeah.
But starts with $30, $34 and something like that. And gradually they improve and they want to take a bigger loan. They came at an average loan of $200 right now. Mostly our borrowers are women. It's all over Bangladesh.
90-odd%.
And they own the bank. 97% of the shares of the bank are held by the borrowers who are mostly women, 97% women. So this is owned by the women of Bangladesh. The bank serves them to create self-employment for them. And we also help the children to go to school. And we give them education loans so that they can go into higher education. Thousands of these young people now in universities and medical schools, engineering schools with Grameen Bank education loans.
Amazing. And I mean, they say that sometimes this is quoted in other countries who've copied your plan, but that in some cases, usually the women who get the $50 or the $100 or the $200 then are tempted to use it on a wedding or a family event rather than to start a small business. Is that a problem?
It's not a problem, but it's true. Some people find that under pressure they have to use the money. They have the money. So something comes up, they have to use this money for other purposes. But that doesn't mean that everybody's doing that. When you are dealing with millions and millions of people, there will be some deviations people will be using under the pressure of the circumstances to make use of this money for other purposes. But to say that this is what happens all the time is not true, because that way the bank will not be functioning anymore, because they won't be able to pay back the money if you are using the money for weddings and dowries and all other kinds of things.
And with all these loans, what percentage are overdue for repayment?
Very small.
Very small.
Very small. Our repayment in Grameen Bank has remained over 97%, 98% all along. So 2%, 3% overdue. But that doesn't mean they're becoming bad debts. Simply, it was not paid back within the time limit, but they're paying back. It took longer time than it was stipulated. That's about it.
People who get larger loans in other banks and so on, and they fail and they lose the money or whatever it is, one would think that starting this small, these people with their $50 and $100 and $200, it must be even more likely that they would fail. But they don't seem to fail. Why? What is it that makes them succeed?
The way the system has been developed, they encourage to use the money for income-generating activity, and then the system is every week you pay tiny little bit, so before it gets bigger. So every week you are paying that tiny little bit, so that it doesn't make it extraordinarily hard to pay that small amount, because you are earning money. This is one institution which began in a very small beginning and gradually grew and established certain norms and became a very well-run bank for the poor people. The whole world admired it, gave it a Nobel Peace Prize. And it brought so much recognition to the contribution of these women in the life of their own family, and inspired the whole world that, yes, poor people can stand up and take care of themselves. And that organization should not be harmed, shouldn't be done anything which will hurt them.
Well, what you've achieved over the years has not been micro, it's been macro.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us again, and
It's
we hope
wonderful.
to see you again soon, hear
It's
you again
wonderful
soon,
to see you.
hear what your latest plan is.
Thank you
Thanks a
very much.
million. A little over 2 years ago, the world lost a great actress, and a mother lost a treasured and beautiful daughter. Natasha Richardson became critically ill hours after receiving what at first appeared to be an innocuous head injury while skiing. Her condition deteriorated over the next 48 hours, and she died in hospital in New York. Her mother, Vanessa Redgrave, is, of course, one of the world's finest actors. And she's with me now. She's in London for a very special reason. Vanessa, welcome. It's great to see you. And explain the reason for your mission, connected with the Chelsea Flower Show.
Yes, totally connected. Well, it's to do with this catalogue, which I got at the Chelsea Flower Show yesterday. I went there with Tasha's brother, half-brother Carlo, and Tasha's half-sister Catherine, Tasha's sister Jolie, who is the kind of genius behind the rose, together with the rose breeders, of course. Yeah. Couldn't be with us because she was in New York rehearsing, but the Natasha Richardson rose that Jolie and I chose at the Harkness Brothers Field in Hitchin, Hertfordshire, last summer, is now on display and for sale at the Chelsea Flower Show, and it looks so beautiful, David. It's
well, have we seen the picture? Let's put it up again anyway. There it is again. That photograph, incidentally, was taken by Vanessa herself, yes?
Isn't it lucky that I did take a picture?
Very, very convenient.
Yeah. £5 off every sale will go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, fantastic. And the reason that you particularly... Was there something about this rose that made you think of Tasha? And
yes, exactly. Well, this all started with a friend of Jolie's. A close friend of Jolie's suggested to her that we might think of having a rose named after Tasha. And through her, we were directed to the Harkness Brothers. And that's how it happened that we found ourselves in a group of greenhouses and out in the fields of roses, and between Hitchin and Letchworth, actually, and saw something of some part of this enormous process of how roses are grown. And we saw beautiful, beautiful roses, and about 3 had been grown and not named. The one that you were looking at just now